Kia ora, good evening. I'm Hannah Wilkins. A manhunt across Dunedin sparked by a rush hour shooting near the railway station has come to an end, with an arrest made and charges laid.
Police confirmed the arrest after armed officers swooped on a Highgate property in Roslyn last night. A 25-year-old male was granted name suppression after appearing in court today on charges of attempted murder for the drive-by incident on Thomas Burns Street last Friday afternoon. Counsel for the defence did not apply for bail. The defendant has been remanded in custody, pending his next appearance in the High Court next month. In Dunedin, the South today.
Southland fire crews worked through the night and into the day to extinguish a large fire that tore through a storage warehouse in Invercargill.
A thick black cloud of smoke could be seen from kilometres away, billowing out of this Invercargill palm kernel storage warehouse. Emergency services were alerted to the large fire around 4:30 on Thursday afternoon. During its peak, 9 fire appliances and 40 firefighters were battling the blaze. Fire and Emergency New Zealand says it was largely contained last night, but 2 crews remained on site to dampen down hotspots in the Lake Street building owned by Freight Haulage. Staff were evacuated quickly yesterday afternoon, and Fens worked with the building owner to bring in heavy machinery to safely clear the palm kernels. Bluff Highway was closed off as fire efforts stepped up yesterday, but the state highway was reopened to the public this morning. In Invercargill, the South today.
Hundreds of teachers and their allies took to the Octagon in Dunedin this week to join a nationwide strike for better pay and better working conditions.
A column of placard-waving protesters snaking through the streets of central Dunedin. Hundreds of marching teachers converged on the Octagon today to join colleagues striking across the nation for better pay and resourcing in the education sector. The PPTA are one of several unions calling the combined strike in an effort to kickstart stalled negotiations with the Ministry of Education.
We're trying to negotiate for conditions that will help our students to thrive. But unfortunately, those negotiations, which have lasted for 9 months now, have not gotten us anywhere.
Thousands of teachers also rallied in Christchurch's Victoria Square before marching on to the Ministry of Education offices.
We've had, crises, we've had cyclones, we've had COVID, we've had earthquakes. There's so many things that are layering on top, and it's been really challenging to meet the needs of the children that have changed. So the needs have changed, but the resourcing hasn't.
Unions are also calling on the government to put more funding into the education sector in general.
We're out here to say we'd like something better, and we're ready to have that negotiation. We need this change to happen. We need the support in secondary education because we want to help our students.
Organisers were happy with the turnout across the country, estimating about 50,000 turned out nationally to take part in the protests. Across the South today.
Dunedin Cyclists have a new way of getting their bikes over the water. A local cruise service has expanded its offering and is now transporting riders and their bicycles across Otago Harbour.
Bikes on boats crossing Otago Harbour. Port-to-port cruises and wildlife tours have been offering ferry trips and wildlife cruises across Otago Harbour for a while. Now they've begun to merge their water-based venture with the road, embracing cyclists and their bikes.
Just looking now to expand a little bit more into taking cyclists across the harbour from Portobello to Port Chalmers or vice versa.
McGregor can fit 15 cyclists on her boat and has now brought on a barge built by Kevin Waters to take up to another 20 bikes.
It's an add-on to my mooring business, and it's something that I'm willing to try and make it work for both of us.
Waka Kotahi New Zealand Transport Agency has been working on improvements to make State Highway 88 better for cyclists since 2019, with the new cycleway from Port Chalmers due to open later this year.
I do expect that the cyclist numbers will increase, and so we're just getting prepared for that now because the cycleway is not too far being finished and there's been a lot of interest in people wanting to cross over.
She says this will give cyclists the chance to take in the beautiful scenery of Otago Harbour while taking a break on the port-to-port ferry. In Dunedin, the South today.
Tempers overheated at a Christchurch City Council meeting this week as locals vented frustration over a smelly waste plant. Residents of the suburb of Bromley have been campaigning to close the council-owned composting site for years, and the dispute threatens to linger on.
Residents in East Christchurch are renewing their pleas for a stinky compost plant in their area to be closed immediately. They've been complaining about the smell coming from Living Earth organics for years.
Nobody should be subjected to such living conditions, but this council allows it to happen.
The processing plant is a council-owned facility in Bromley, operated by Living Earth, composting 50,000 tonnes of organic waste annually. Christchurch City Council has voted this week to move to the final stage of finding an alternative site. 6 possible suppliers have been shortlisted and none are on council land, although the list remains confidential. However, residents say the process is taking too long.
It is a very long, complex process, and we do definitely understand everyone's frustration around the length of time that takes. What we are looking to do is ensure that that process is sound, is defendable, and that we have no delays along the decision-making process.
The plant receives all the food and green waste collected in the curbside green bins. The final report is expected to be presented to Council for consideration early next year, and a contract awarded by February 2024. In Christchurch, the South Today.
Whaiakene, still to come on Southern Newsweek. Wanaka gets wild and woolly as the town's big A&P show attracts more than 40,000 visitors. And a southern motorbike rider prepares for his 3rd stint competing overseas. Tēnā koe, welcome back. Wanaka's showgrounds were jam-packed last weekend as one of the country's biggest A&P shows drew in a bumper crowd. The event delivered a weekend of fun in the sun, providing a huge boost to the local rural economy.
Organisers and attendees are flying high after a wildly successful Wanaka A&P show. More than 44,000 people flocked to the showgrounds over the weekend to celebrate all things rural.
Crowds were here early this morning, lining up to get in the gate. We've got record trade sites here, and that just is offering so many different options for people to explore.
Livestock of all shapes and sizes were proudly paraded, with pet owners putting on a performance in the ring. And this year the show also hosted the New Zealand Supreme Fine Wool Fleece competition for the first time. The Patterson family from Armadale Station in the Maniatoto taking out the top prize, scoring 99 points out of a possible 100.
We decided that we needed to show the excellence to expose the excellence of New Zealand wool to our visitors and our competitors to display their wool.
Competitors in the equestrian events showed off their skills while woodchoppers worked up an appetite. Organisers were delighted with the turnout and estimate the annual event boosts the local economy by almost $30 million. In Wanaka, the South Today.
Blue skies in Dunedin made for good conditions for outdoor activities as 700 schoolgirls took to the pitch to show off their sporty skills.
Laughter, cheers and music ringing out over Dunedin's Logan Park. Fern Fever brought together hundreds of schoolgirls in an event celebrating women's sport and the 3 World Cups held here or on the calendar. This brightly coloured Unity pitch is travelling around Australia and New Zealand as part of promotions around the upcoming FIFA Women's World Cup.
The girls start to see it. If they can see it, they believe that it's coming, and then they get really excited and they go home, they want to buy tickets, they want to get involved, they want to play football, they might want to play cricket, they might want to play rugby. As long as they're playing sport, that's the main thing.
Injured football Fern midfielder Annalie Longo was in town as part of the roadshow and is keen to inspire more girls to get involved in sport.
It's just that opportunity and to see role models and female coaches out here doing it, I think it can really, be a huge impact on the girls' lives. So to be part of that and to, celebrate how far women's football is growing, it's nice to see.
The girls had the chance to take part in some football games and skills sessions, as well as being able to try out cricket and rugby.
It's so cool to have almost 700 girls turn up. The schools have given them their school, which is awesome. It shows that people are valuing girls-only sport.
More than 500,000 tickets have already been sold for the FIFA Women's World Cup across New Zealand and Australia. The Unity pitch will pop up next month in Wellington as activities ramp up ahead of the World Cup's launch in July. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Southland motorbike rider Cormac Buchanan is preparing to return to Europe for his third overseas campaign. The 16-year-old's enjoyed a summer of strong performances at home, but admits this is a crucial year for his future.
Invercargill motorcycle rider Cormac Buchanan is loving his job right now and putting his international racing experience into practice back home. The teenager's unbeaten in both the Supersport 300 and 600 classes this season, heading into the final round of the New Zealand Superbike Champs this weekend.
At first it was really difficult, just like the whole new bike and just trying to understand how to ride it properly, and then once we started building confidence, then the results started to show through.
Buchanan's relished his past season back home and reckons it's changed his technique and style of riding.
The 600 is a different style of riding, and I think that's going to translate really well into the Moto3 bikes. Just the whole standing up and not carrying so much lean angle on these bikes.
He'll be taking those lessons, form and confidence with him as he returns to Europe next week. Buchanan's set to tackle a third and final year in the Red Bull Rookies Cup, as well as competing in the FIM Junior GP World Champs with his Spanish team AGR Racing.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very optimistic for my season this year, so I've got big goals and looking forward to trying to make them come true.
But the 16-year-old admits this is a make or break year for him and is conscious of the need to succeed. Buchanan will be flying back to Europe with his father and mechanic Stacey straight after squeezing in his final race in Taupo on Sunday. In Invercargill, the South Today.
The demolition of a long-standing pub in Gore got underway this week, making space for a new housing block. A crowd of school pupils gathered at Longford Tavern site to watch the demolition, with work crews trying to do their part for the environment.
Chants echoing through the car park as East Gore School's principal gets ready to put her skills to the test on the excavator. The demolition of Gore's Longford Tavern smashed into action yesterday after Kāinga Ora purchased the property last year with plans to build 20 brand new homes. Rael Bush Transport have taken on the project with the goal of finishing the demo in around 4 weeks. They're also aiming to recycle over 90% of the wreckage.
We've achieved similar targets on other projects and we believe 90% will be achievable for this one.
The demolition crew drew a crowd as East Gore School pupils and teachers visited the site. The children lit up as they saw the excavator at work, with the driver even putting on a few theatrics for his audience.
No, it was great to have the kids along. They really enjoyed it and Tom put on a bit of a show for them, so it was great.
Kāinga Ora are currently drawing up the plans for the new housing complex, with final resource and building consent applications still to be lodged. In Gore, the South Today.
Giving it a try was the order of the day at Invercargill's Surf to City event. Thousands of walkers, runners and cyclists turned out, with participants coming from all walks of life and going at different paces.
Thousands flocking to the Invercargill coast to take part in the annual More FM Surf to City event. It was sand, sun and smiles all around as the 12-kilometre journey got underway at Oreti Beach. The community event came back bigger and better this year after having to downsize in 2022 due to COVID-19 restrictions.
Last year we weren't able to run the event like this, so it's really cool that we can get everyone back together in person and enjoying the sunshine today.
Participants were also able to choose the option of 2 shorter routes, with the event catering for people of all ages and abilities.
We're over the moon actually with the response that we've received today. So when we look around, we see people of all ages and people who have actually sort of taken part not only with family and friends but businesses as well.
Southlanders flexed their creativity by sporting fun and unique transport, from tandem bikes to a range of wheelchairs. The journey saw people taking part for many different reasons.
So we're doing this as raising funds and awareness for Leukemia and Blood Cancer New Zealand.
I've been an amputee for a couple of years. I take part in Surf to City to normalise disability in the community and get people to recognise it as being a normal thing they see every day.
Either I'm crazy or just love running, so that's why I'm here. Anyway, see you later.
Organisers were blown away at the level of involvement this year, with over 3,500 people taking part, which was a warm welcome back to the event's traditional format. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Whai Yakane, still to come on Southern Newsweek. An iconic Dunedin restaurant will be no more as a local nano brewery looks for expansion. And the country's best lifesavers hit the beach in Christchurch, encountering big waves and wild surf. Tēnā koe, welcome back. A Dunedin nano brewery is taking their business up a notch by moving their operation into the former premises of an iconic local restaurant. Dogstar Brew Lab have brought out Zucchini Brothers with plans to expand their brewery and give the team more space to become creative with their beers.
Dogstar Brew Lab owners enjoying one of their own creations as they celebrate moving into their new location. The team are planning to expand the nano brewery after buying well-known Dunedin restaurant Zucchini Bros. Haddon Gamble and Saul Ross have been brewing together for the last 2 years. They were always keen on moving their operations to this character building on Princess Street and are delighted to be able to turn that dream into reality.
We've finally found a home. That's the best thing. And it's in a great part of town. It's in a fantastic historical building.
The pair are currently brewing just 150 litres for each batch of their craft beers. This move will enable them to eventually step up production to 600 litres per batch. But for now, they'll be taking advantage of their smaller brewing size to experiment more in their new home.
Now that we've got a venue, we can offer styles that we didn't have the opportunity to offer while we were selling to others.
The Dogstar Brewing team are still setting up in their new location, hoping to eventually offer food alongside their craft brews, with the goal of opening to the public by the end of the month. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Mountain bikers took to the hills around Alexandra last weekend for the 3-day Prospector race. Competitors came from all over to tackle the world-class trails, with the events continuing to grow in popularity.
Pushing through the burn in the hills of Alexandra, finishing out the last day of racing. The 3-day Prospector mountain bike stage race came to an end yesterday after entrants took on the gruelling challenge of riding through the small town's world-class trails. This was the 3rd year running for the endurance race, which saw 160 riders take part, continuing to grow from previous years.
It gets bigger and better every year, and we love it so much. The riders love it so much. You just get such a good buzz out of this race. Yeah, it's a great time.
16-year-old up-and-comer Eddie Adams was competing in the men's team section, placing second in the division, and was able to keep himself in the fight with some of his heroes.
I always used to be my idols, just watching them race. I want to be like him one day. So racing with them and against them is pretty awesome and also pretty challenging.
There were 3 stages held across the event, with all the trails going through the hills of Alexandra, allowing riders to take in the beautiful scenery.
I think I just love being outside, going up hills and seeing the view, especially with good friends and company, and pushing yourself, but then getting a bit of reward for it.
Even though those two were enjoying the views, they still pushed hard and managed to take the top spot in the women's team section, with Julbo Akatrax taking home the men's title after a tight battle between 3 other teams. In Alexandra, the South Today.
The country's top lifesavers got the chance to test their skills against each other recently. Hundreds of competitors hit the water in various events, including swimming and inflatable rescue boats.
Big surf, hot sun and fierce competition. Christchurch turned it on for the TSB New Zealand Surf Life Savings Championship over the weekend. It's 3 years since the last national champs and 7 since the competition was last held here at New Brighton Beach. Its return was welcomed, with large crowds gathering along the beach to watch the action.
This is the first time in 3 years it's taken place, so it's great to be back in Christchurch. At New Brighton here we've got about 1,000 competitors competing today, from events from swimming through to boats and canoes.
The impact of the recent cyclone and travel difficulties with the Cook Strait ferries failed to impact on the athlete numbers or dampen the enthusiasm of the country's elite lifesavers. Local South Island clubs helped out, pooling their resources to ensure those affected had all the gear they needed.
There was gear shared around, there was phone calls last week when the ferries, people couldn't get across ferries, swapping gear. I know the New Brighton Surf Club loaned Sunset Beach a surf boat, so there's just gear getting matched around all over the place, which is great.
There was plenty of action across the 4 days, although the big surf meant a few adjustments to the original program. Officials, water safety monitors and clubs working together to find the right balance between excitement and safety while managing the surf races.
We had a hole put into a surf boat down the other end, but that's when two surf boats kiss each other, one comes off worse off. There's a couple of broken skis yesterday, but everyone seems to be enjoying it. The surf is toned down today, but absolutely beautiful weekend.
And despite some testing conditions, crews from the Taylor's Mistake Club came out on top, leading the table on 127 points and finishing ahead of local rivals North Beach and Waimari. In Christchurch, the South Today.
Queenstown firefighters put their skills to the test last week, tackling what's described as the toughest sport in 2 minutes.
Around 40 firefighters from across Otago and Southland gathered at the Queenstown Primary School on Saturday to battle it out in the Southern Firefighter Challenge. Competitors were faced with a combination of difficult tasks, things that are considered to be the hardest parts of the job. Athletes had to climb up 3 stories, then reel up a 20-kilogram weight attached to a rope, moving on to a couple of simulation tasks, before finally carrying a dummy to the finish line. Firefighter Samuel Stafford Bush claimed the top spot with a time of just under 2 minutes. The provincial challenge was the first stage ahead of the South Island champs this month, with hopes some of the Southerners will move on to the Nationals later in the year. In Queenstown, the South Today.
Around 10,000 people tested their taste buds and challenged their fears during the 34th Hokitika Wild Foods Festival last weekend. On the menu was everything from West Coast venison and tar through to more daring dishes like sheep testicles, locusts and larvae.
Bugs, animal genitals and moonshine were all on the menu as one of the country's most popular gastronomic events returned to the West Coast. The 2023 Hokitika Wild Food Festival was welcomed back after the first ever hiatus in the event's history due to COVID-19. Thousands of punters from across the country and from overseas were grateful to celebrate its return and keen to challenge their taste buds and their stomachs with the range of wild foods on offer.
Fresh and healthy hoo grubs, straight out the logs.
Well, we've just sold out of all the jelly shots actually, and they had larvae, which are like baby wasps in them.
It's kind of an elixir.
The popular Hokitika Festival has a 33-year history, and its unique take on food and drink attracts a number of regulars. These Canterbury monks were among the thousands of wild food fans back for another session.
Alright, we are the 8 Marks from Marks Monastery over in Christchurch, Otago. The weirdest thing I've eaten today so far is a hoo-hoo grub. The weirdest thing I want to eat is some horse cum that's cum.
The festival also offers a strong lineup of musical entertainment, so people can enjoy some tunes with their hoo-hoo grubs.
So this year we're really lucky. We've got Greg Johnson, we've got Zed, and we've got the iconic music legend that is Sir Dave Dobbin.
As well as the eclectic snacks that are the real draw card here, the festival's also become something of a costume competition among attendees, with $1,000 on offer for the best dress at the Feral Fashion Show. Festival goers started their day with a downpour, but is finishing it off with full stomachs and the taste of insect lingering on their tongue. In Hokitika, the South Today.
That wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news and videos from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. And you can follow Channel 39 on YouTube and the South Today NZ on Facebook to catch our news bulletins on demand. We'll see you again next week. Mā te wā.
Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.